friends, how are you doing? My name is Alena Shautsova. I'm a New York immigration attorney, and tonight we're going to be discussing a series of announcements that were made within this past couple of days by the Trump administration, announcing major changes to the United States immigration. Those changes were caused by the attack that happened in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, and they are quite sweeping, quite major changes. And I tried to track them because there were a lot of different announcements that were made. And tonight I'm going to try to discuss with you major changes that are going to happen starting pretty much immediately in the United States immigration. So thank you very much for joining. My name is Alena Shautsova, New York immigration lawyer. I hold these live sessions regularly, usually on Tuesdays and Friday nights, where I am discussing with you the most important recent immigration news. So if you're new here, welcome. Don't forget to like, share this show, and of course, ask your questions in the comments and share it, and let's start. So as you may be aware, there was a horrible attack that happened in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving, where a national of Afghanistan opened fire at National Guard soldiers, and at least one of them was killed, unfortunately, right? And following this terrific situation, Trump administration made a number of announcements regarding immigrants in the United States, and we're going to go over those announcements. Well, first of all, Trump administration immediately stated, as soon as the person was identified, that they will be pausing all immigration benefits for nationals of Afghanistan, and especially for those people who recently arrived to the United States through the special parole program announced by the Biden administration. And justification for this move is to vet people better. But that was not the only announcement that was made. After that, Trump administration says that he will permanently pause migrants from third world countries receiving any immigration benefits in the United States. And I understand that next week, Trump administration is going to elaborate on this particular proclamation and how exactly it's going to be implemented, and nationals of which countries are going to be affected, and where are these nationals going to be the ones who are already in the United States, or people who are trying to file for the visas, for example, from out of the United States? Will they going to expand the list of countries that are already on complete or partial ban? Because we already have some countries that are on complete ban or partial ban. And what exactly is going to happen with this, of course, is a huge concern for all immigrants in the United States. It's also a huge concern for federal cases that are currently being litigated in federal courts. Because, for example, there is a number of cases where Trump administration is arguing that the force that they're using and National Guard soldiers that they're bringing to various cities, especially sanctuary cities, should be justified. And of course, this situation on Wednesday gives Trump administration strong argument in their favor that their actions are justified. And we have to all understand that, because it necessarily is going to cause more robust immigration enforcement, and stricter rules are going to apply to all immigrants, as already is proclaimed by Trump administration. So Afghan nationals, then they said nationals from third world countries, but then we also have an announcement that is more concerning and broad. Specifically, there is also an announcement stating that U.S. immigration agencies launches re-examination of green card holders from 19 countries of concern. Re-examination of green card holders, so people who received their green cards, let's say based on marriage or DV lottery, or through asylum or through employment, green card holders that were vetted already are going to be targeted again. And in this particular announcement, it says that those are the nationals of 19 countries of concern. What are those countries? They're citing the same countries that are on the visa ban, such as Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of Congo, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, Sudan, partial ban countries. But in addition to this announcement, they also stated, Trump administration, that they will be making decisions about all immigration benefits, taking into consideration general country conditions in the person's country where they're coming from, particularly relating to that country's ability to issue secure documents of identification. So what's happening here is the Trump administration is going to re-examine immigration process for thousands and hundreds of applicants, making their determinations not only on a personal basis and merit, but also on conditions in the country where people are coming from. If generally speaking, conditions in those countries are not favorable, you may be denied visa, green card, perhaps even citizenship, I understand. If this administration determines that the country you're coming from is not reliable. And then today, just a couple of hours ago, there was another very important announcement made. And now it affects not only, if you recall, I already reported the Trump administration is going to be revetting the refugees, people who were admitted into the United States as a refugee during the Biden administration. This announcement now concerns all asylum seekers who are in the United States. And this is new big breaking news. Trump administration is going to hold all decisions on all asylum pending cases, affirmative asylum pending cases. And the way it's going to be done, according to this news announcement, I did not see the memo, but the news sources say that they had access to that memo that just came out today. According to this memo, asylum officers are going to review the cases, call people for the interviews, but when the time comes to make the decision, they're going to stop and they will not make decision on your case. What's going to happen next, I do not know. Does it mean that you're going to be again stuck in a backlog? Because we just started seeing the backlog being slowly cleaning up, it's being cleaned up from the years 15, 16, 17. But now, with this new announcement, it seems that the cases are again going to be now in the decision backlog, right? Does it mean that you will be referred to court? Again, I do not know. Usually, you cannot be referred to court without the decision being made by the asylum office. But this is something new that came out. Maybe the administration is just taking a pause, and after new procedures are going to be installed, new vetting procedures, they're going to restart issuing the decisions. My understanding is exactly what's going to happen. I think they're just going to so-called regroup, come up with new methods of vetting, and then they're going to restart making decisions on the cases. And perhaps what it means for you also is that you, again, may be stuck in a second backlog related to asylum decisions. You may be called for a second interview. You may be asked to produce now verified with apostille documents confirming your identity and perhaps some other aspects of your asylum claim. Very important to understand that. And of course, overall, it means probably that there will be just more denials. Remember, when you are an asylee, sometimes you literally do not have much documents because you did not prepare, you had to flee for your life. And this particular move, of course, is going to negatively affect those people specifically, people who found themselves to begin with in a very difficult situation. So this whole amount of crazy changes, sweeping changes, was announced just in a matter of 2 days. I understand that what happened was horrifying and absolutely wrong. But at the same time, It's going to affect every single immigrant in the United States, and potentially it's going to slow down our immigration system, again, putting it in the backlog for years. So we need to understand that, and of course you have to be prepared for this. It means that if you have a case, be it a green card case, citizenship case, asylum case, you have to have an excellent preparation, and you have to pay attention to every single detail. Sometimes, even before this changes, I've seen denials of the cases related to faulty translations of the documents. Please do not use Google Translate for your asylum cases, for your green card cases. Make sure to use professional translators, extremely important. Make sure if you are handling your case yourself, you read instructions to the forms to make sure that your application is complete as much as possible. Do not rely on ChatGPT advice. ChatGPT is wrong in many, many cases. All right. I'm not saying that it's completely useless. Absolutely not. But you need to know how to use it, and it's not good for legal advice. So get ready for these changes. Make sure that you have always a backup plan. Your case is extremely well prepared. And now, if you guys have questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Again, we have limited information. We do not have official copies of the memorandums, except for the announcement related to extra vetting in connection with unsafe countries. That was actually published by DHS, but the rest of the announcement we source from press releases right now. Understandably, because it was a long weekend, it's Thanksgiving weekend, I expect that next week we're going to get more information and copies of official documents and announcements, further detailing these major changes in our immigration system. Now, you guys, if you have any questions, please let me know. Hi, Veronica. I sent my 290B, and in the brief, I'll let USCIS know I'll be sending additional evidence in the next 30 days. I haven't heard from them, nor have they charged my card for $800 for the 290B. How long to wait? Veronica, it depends, I guess, when you send it in. Have you tracked your package? Was it received? Sometimes they do take a little bit of time to charge your, to process that filing fee. It usually depends, but within like 2 weeks, you should expect for the filing fee to go through. And as to the 30 days, I think the way it works is that you should send a brief. It says sometimes, that you're going to send a brief later. And just make sure that you follow the rules, right? It depends also what form you receive denial on, because this opportunity to submit additional briefing usually relates to denial of I-130 form or I-360 form. And did you file an appeal? Or did you file a motion to reopen? Because the address where you have to send those would be different and procedure would be different, okay? By the way, sometimes you guys are confused about an opportunity to file an appeal. For most forms, you'll be filing motion to reopen rather than appeal. Forms that can be appealed would be I-140, I-360, I-130 usually. But the place where you're going to be sending your appeal is different depending on the form as well. Very important to know that. Hi, street fighting. Is the new law affecting a green card? Yes, it's going to be affecting some green card holders. It's not a new law, it's rather a new announcement by the administration, the way they will be processing cases. And they stated that people from 19 countries who receive green cards are going to be re-vetted again. So you may be called for an interview, you may be called for fingerprints. You cannot miss those appointments, guys, if you receive them. Make sure your address is updated with USCIS so that you don't miss any notices from USCIS. Very important, okay? Yes, I already granted my green card since April, but still no reply from my green card. Is the new law affect my green card? You received the approval of the green card but didn't get a physical card. Is that what's happening? It happens sometimes. You just need to follow up with USCIS and see what happened. Perhaps use your senator for help. Okay. Senators and congressmen may very well be useful in these situations when you do not know what's happening with your case. Thank you, William, for your gift. Thank you, guys, for your hearts. For those of you who are watching me on TikTok, I hope everything is good with you. Let me see. Ma'am, when we expect to get a deferred action notice in mail for SIJS? I'm not sure if you're going to be reissued a deferred action notice. I think you should follow up with your attorney. I believe that what's going to happen here is that you may want to file for a work permit. And what happens in this situation is that grant of the work permit is going to serve as a grant of deferred action, but follow up with your attorney as to exact procedure, okay? Let's see, guys, if you have more questions. Oh, thank you, Alexandria. Thank you, very nice. Thank you for your gift and nice, kind words. You guys can ask your immigration questions now. I know this particular announcements are shocking. You know, I'm telling you, you're probably sitting and thinking, are you from the third world country? Like, will it affect you? What is considered to be a third world country? I have to tell you, it's quite concerning what's happening all the way around. Why they detain people after hearing or check in through people still in process, I guess. Why do they do that? Well, because they can, because some people are arriving aliens, and according to the law, they're subject to detention. The difference would be if a person can qualify for immigration bond. We recently got a federal decision on ability to receive immigration bond for those who entered without inspection, but a long time ago. And it's a very favorable decision for many immigrants. But why do they detain people? That corresponds to the whole line of immigration policy by the current administration, right? They're not tailoring their actions to favor immigration, but rather to stop it. They're saying that the country needs to recover from immigrants. It's in one of the announcements. The country has to, how did Trump put it, something along the line that they have to basically recover from immigration from the third world countries, and that's why they're deciding to stop immigrants from those countries from receiving any benefits. But that's just a whole general new trend, right? I think Trump partially won elections because he stated that he's going to end illegal immigration. But now what we're seeing, as you can see for yourself, this administration is also going after legal immigrants, right? People who are trying to fix their status. I've heard that there is a memo, and again, did not see it, I don't know if it's the truth, that there is a memo that was sent to USCIS officers that they have to text ICE people when they encounter someone who comes for adjustment of status interview and they're out of status, and they text ICE people. And ICE people come in, and ICE officers, and they detain such a person. Whether or not it's just a rumor, I cannot confirm, but that's what other lawyers shared on our little conversation board that we have. I did not see such a memo. Maybe it's the truth, maybe it's not. I can tell you that none of my clients so far have been detained at such interviews. Nobody. So I do not have any personal experience to share here. But if you know for a fact that the person, for example, qualifies for a green card based on marriage and has been detained after the immigration interview by ICE, please let me know. post here where you got this information from, but make sure it's an accurate information, right? So we all can have a little bit more insights as to what's going on, okay? So thank you guys very much for your gifts. What are some green card interview questions? Hi, Missy. It depends on the qualifications for your green card. You should expect to testify about all the information you left on your forms, of course, and your background, and any previous immigration history and criminal history as well. Hi, Bomboclat. Both my parents are citizens before I turned 18. Am I automatically citizen? If not, what to do? I cannot tell because the law changed quite a bit within the past couple of decades with regard to automatic citizenship. And you should consult with an attorney, show them your birth certificates for your parents, their residential history in the United States, and where were you born, when you were born, and things like that. It's all very important to understand if you're automatically a US citizen. Okay. Hi, Indrapal Kalsi. Greetings. How long BAO package with adjustment of status permits taking? Thanks. How long would it take USCIS to consider all the forms? About 2.5 years these days. All right. Hi, M. Blake. Are they processing and removing conditions from persons with conditional green cards? So far, my answer is yes. They are processing removal of conditions. I have not heard anything otherwise. Hi, somebody from Mauritania. Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining. We're discussing the most recent immigration news and I'm answering your guys' questions live. I hope all is well with you. Let me know how everything is going and what questions you have for me tonight. Hi, Linus. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. Will the new ban announced yesterday will affect processing time for DS-260 for DV lottery winners from Egypt? And what restrictions will affect approval? From Egypt. Egypt is not, thankfully, so far on any of the lists that I've seen. But I can imagine that the changes announced will affect everybody because I think what's going to happen is that the government and Department of State is going to implement new vetting procedures. In addition to asking for your social media and, of course, standard background checks, I think they're going to come up with something else to slow down legal immigration. All right, so whether you're from Egypt, Belarus, or Australia, this situation will absolutely affect you, especially at the very beginning. As we've seen in the past, first administration makes announcements, then they make new policies and procedures. Then it takes some time to implement the new rules. And after maybe 4 to 6 months, when those rules, when the officers get familiar with those rules, we see that cases go back on usual track in terms of time processing. I believe the same thing is going to happen here, right? All right. What if you entered without inspection? You still can be detained? Of course. Hi, Zebik. Of course, if you entered without inspection, you don't have any legal status here, and you absolutely can be detained. But the difference is, if you are detained, can you be released on bond or not? So, some time ago, in August, I believe, there was a decision by the Board of Immigration Appeals saying that the person who entered without inspection is an applicant for admission, and as such, they're arriving alien and are subject to detention without ability for immigration bond. And many people suffered. They were detained and couldn't be released. The only way they were released if they would sue the government in the federal court, and the federal judge would issue an order forcing the government to release them. That was the case until about November 20th, when a federal judge certified class action, national class action, stating that if you entered the United States a long time ago, you were not apprehended at the border, you should not be subject to this detention without immigration bond. Okay, so there is a difference between being detained and ability of being released on bond, right? Bond maybe only $1,500 or maybe $25,000, depends on the judge. Like practitioners know that there are judges, they always issue $15,000 bond, for example, if you are with a judge. It happens. Why? Because if the amount of bond is significant, the government is less likely to appeal it. That's the pattern, I think, of thinking, right? What about public charge for green cards? Yes, we discussed that during my last live, I believe, and on my website, shautsova.com. The government, current administration is going to change the rules about the public charge, expanding the factors that will be taken into consideration when they make a decision whether or not an immigrant is going to become a public charge in the United States, far beyond the affidavit of support issue. I advise all of you, unless it's a life or death situation, do not use public benefits. Do not use this free insurance, because recently they started saying, the government, federal government, DHS, that state funded, what we thought, state funded plans that never were considered to be somehow related to public charge situation or factors. They're saying that, in fact, they're funded by the federal government, and because of that, it's a federally funded public benefit that affects your public charge determination. So please, if you can, just don't use it, right? Because I don't know what's going to happen a year from now. Let's say you are an asylum seeker, right? And asylum seekers are not subject to public charge rule currently, haven't been, probably won't be for a while, according to the law. And you're using these benefits that the government gives you. You're qualified for these benefits. But a year from now, you qualify for marriage-based green card, for example. For marriage-based green card, now it's different. Public benefits are going to be taken into consideration. And I strongly believe that this administration is going to pull something like that. So please, if you can, do not use any public benefits, whether you're asylum seeker, VAWA applicant, SIJS applicant, or any other applicant, because it may affect you down the road more than you think, okay? All right. Is there asylum green card on pause? Can it save now to put inquiry on green card pending 16 months? Hi, Bankura. 16 months is not such a long time, first of all. Second, prior to this Wednesday, green cards that were filed after a person won asylum just started being considered. Now I do not know what's going to happen again, right? But prior to this Wednesday, my answer would have been yes. They started to consider and calling people for interviews in connection with green card applications because you want asylum. But now I do not know what's going to happen, especially depending on the country you're from. It unfortunately may affect you again. Yeah, let's see what other questions you guys have. Is it going to be retroactive? If that will be the law, what exactly, Zebik, tell me what your question relates to, what's going to be retroactive? Any change that is happening in immigration law should not be retroactive. But it shouldn't be, but very often it is. For example, if you recall, when this administration passed Lake and Raleigh Act, there were cases where a person was detained and deported because of the past convictions related to theft that happened before the Can Rally Act came into effect, we all thought it shouldn't be retroactive, and it probably shouldn't. But because the law didn't specifically say how it should be treated, it gave ICE an opportunity to use it retroactively, at least in those cases. So, well, it shouldn't be retroactive. It can be. Because sometimes they implement regulations with certain wording, like has ever done something, and then it becomes de facto retroactive. Okay, if you have ever used immigration public benefits, for example, you know, you may fight it in federal court, but it's going to be tough. All right. Hi, Veramula. I applied for U visa and inquired date already passed. What should I do for my U visa, please? I'm not sure if you will be able to do anything for the U visa because U visas are in a huge backlog. What is the status of that application? Do you have a work permit? Do you have bona fide determinations? Did you have a pre-approval? Follow up with your attorney, but I'm going to tell you, most of the times you will not be able to do anything. If the government says that they would have otherwise approved and issued the U visa, but the quotas were used up, there's nothing that can be done about that. Okay. Hi, Deal. I'm a victim of marriage fraud. What can I do? It depends on circumstances, I guess. First of all, if you believe that marriage fraud was committed, you should file for an annulment, right? But what would be the circumstances? What do you believe happened to you? Share with your attorney, and they may give you advice. Sometimes you can do something, sometimes there is nothing to be done. Not everything that negatively happened in your relationship considered to be marriage fraud legally. All right. If you did have a relationship with the person but it didn't work out, most of the times it's not going to be marriage fraud, right? It can be broken heart situation, but not necessarily marriage fraud. Okay. 2 days ago, applied for C14 EAD with USCIS adjudication work permit for approved SIJS. All right, 2 days ago, nothing can be said about it yet. 2 days ago was Thanksgiving, so I don't think you should expect any decision so far, right? Let's see. F2B from the Philippines. Those of you guys who are in preference-based categories, F2A, F2B, first of all, you have to look at the visibility and see where your case is according to the visibility. Now you also will have to look and check yourself against these banned countries. Are you on the ban, partial ban, or full ban? If you are from one of those countries, right? And that I would say that wait for the next week for the announcements to see what exactly the government is going to say. Which countries specifically are going to be on this list of the third world countries that Trump said will permanently stop any immigration from? All right, because I have no idea what those countries are. Maybe the 19 countries that we already have a list of, or maybe this will be a totally new list with expanded profiles of the countries. I do not know. As I said, we have a number of announcements and we don't really have much official guidelines here, except for in one case where the government did issue guidelines stating that general country conditions are going to be taken into consideration when making decisions about immigration benefits in the United States. And I published copies of those guidelines on my Instagram and Facebook, so you can go to my profiles. My Instagram, my Facebook is really easy to find. New York Immigration Lawyer. That's my page name with 900 something followers, 900,000 followers. And you're going to see if you scroll down a little bit, because I do post a lot during the day. you will see the language of that announcement. Guys, also please join my social media, join my Instagram, Facebook, because during the day, throughout the day, we publish the most important immigration news and stories. Okay, stories, they disappear after a while, but if you check the page a couple times a day, you will know pretty much everything that I know. Okay, because as soon as I know something, I publish it in the stories so you can always stay informed. Hi, Vancouver. My mistake on green card application. I did no on visa denied to USA question, but I had denied in 2016 F1 visa. How to correct? All right, so you can correct it, especially while your application is still pending. You can send a USS um, request, service request, I think it's called. You can also, if you have a USS account, just upload your letter explanation with proof. Just upload into your electronic account, USS account, as to what happened, okay? Yes, you can do that. Before the application is decided, you should be able to correct it. Hi, Viramulia, I have received bona fide determination and work permit. What should I do? My visa application is already passing inquiry date. I guess past processing times. I don't think, as I said, you will be able to do anything, and you're in much better situation because you received your work permit than many immigrants. At least you can work legally and get a real ID in the United States, which is very important. All right, guys, I'm going to answer one more question for tonight. All right, let's see. Please explain SIJ after approval. Hi, Barry. So SIJ, Special Immigrant Juvenile Petition. You know that the process starts in the family court. First, you receive family court orders, which you should have two, related to guardianship or custody and to special findings. Then you can submit special immigrant juvenile petition with USCIS. Once it is approved, you have to wait for about 5 years before you can file for the green card. Biden administration stated that for this 5 years, you're going to have deferred action, which is a protection from deportation, and work permit. This administration this summer decided to cancel this policy. Federal judge on November 19th or 20th stated that this new approach by current administration should stop and the deferred action should continue with work permits. That's what happened. Unfortunately, there were cases reported that some SIJ beneficiaries were deported prior to being able to file for those green cards, guys. So it's a controversial situation. We're going to see if the government is going to appeal federal judge's determination on green card, on deferred action in connection with SIJ. But so far, from what I understand, you should be able to receive deferred action and work permits. And you just have to wait until the time comes, your priority date becomes current for you to file for green cards. By the way, if you receive SIJ status, you will not be able to, and after that you receive green card and citizenship, you will not be able to sponsor your parents. Even if one of the parents was a good parent and another one was not, you won't be able to sponsor any of your parents. Okay? There is a question if you can sponsor your siblings, but most lawyers would tell you that you won't be able to do that either. All right? Well, guys, thank you very much for watching, sharing the stream, and liking it. Please join my social medias to stay updated with regard to the most important immigration news. Of course, I hope you all going to have a safe weekend, and I hope to see you soon.